Hi, this is Asha. I'm the founder of Law of Asha, and I welcome you. Today, we are going to be chatting about systems and programs of control. I have been going through my process this year, and I, over the past month or so, have begun to really understand what this year has meant for me and what's been happening in my life and why certain things have been happening the way they have. Although I would not desire to go through this year again per se, I realize I've learned a lot from every single thing that has happened, and none of it was a coincidence, none of it was random, and I'm beginning to understand exactly why it all happened. And the reason why it all happened are programs and systems of control. So I want to start this by, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I'm just gonna come out and say it. In the spirituality and consciousness community, a lot of people end up in this community because they've realized that the old way of doing things, the way that mainstream society says that life should be living and what should be done and XYZ wasn't working for them. The way that their religion told them they needed to live their lives wasn't working for them. The things that their doctor, the medical industry told them they needed to do to be healthy wasn't working for them. The way that they were told they needed to be and engage in their relationships wasn't working for them. I could go down the list. But essentially, these old programs or old ways of going about living life were not working, and so they woke up and then they joined the spirituality consciousness community and began to explore that. The spirituality and consciousness community is largely running on programs as well. It just is. Astrology is a program. Numerology is a program. Chakras are a program. Human design is a program. There are all these programs that are already set. Let's take a moment to define the word program, right? So I've got my computer here. I know that some of y'all are, oh, I'm gonna Google that. I'm gonna look up, see what Google says. Google is not the supreme authority, but for the sake of this, we are going to Google it. So program. Okay, the definition of program as defined by Oxford Languages is a set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. A series of coded software instructions to control the operation of a computer or other machine. So for our purposes, number one is probably most applicable. A set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. A program already has a goal in mind, and it has activities or measures or guidelines or rules that are meant to achieve that long-term goal. Now, the whole point of sort of like waking up, right, is to be free of the construct, to be free of influence from others, and to think with your own mind, live with your own directive, follow your true inner being, your true sources, guidance on whatever you should be doing in life. Now, I will tell you this. If you wake up only to find that there are more programs, there are paths already, or measures and activities already decided to reach a particular aim, those are still programs. There's another level here. That's not the finish line. That's not it. And I believe that's why so many coaches, why so many healers, why so many guides, why so many in the spirituality and consciousness community are still suffering, are still struggling, is because they've woken up and they've just clicked into another program because they've been running programs their whole life. Most people are addicted to running programs. Most people are looking for something with an answer, right? With a goal. Most people are looking for some goal that they can just click into and They're like, oh, all I have to do is do these things and then I'll achieve this goal and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that's not it. That's not the reason why you began this process of opening your eyes and really seeing things the way they are. I've been rewatching the Matrix trilogy. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I feel like every time I watch that movie, I understand it on a deeper level than I did before. So I recommend homework, watch the Matrix trilogies, and it will put what I'm saying into even greater context. What it would really be like to live outside of these constructs that are here, these things that are already here, these ideas, these ways of doing things that are already here, that have been decided by someone else. What would it be to live completely outside of that and live your life in a way that hasn't already been lived before? Instead of repeating and regurgitating what someone else has already done, a path that someone else has already set. Now, to put this in perspective, to give a bit more like here, before there was, at one point, astrology did not exist. This construct, this program of astrology explaining all these things, it wasn't there. And then one day it was. And it was new. It was a new path, right? Someone had to carve that path. Think about human design, right? Before human design, it wasn't there. Human design didn't exist before it did. Someone, Ra, paved the way with that. That was something brand new. Think about emotional freedom technique, tapping, right? Actually, I feel like that actually already did exist. It just got rebranded. But let's go back even deeper. Let's say, gosh, the more that I try to go down rabbit holes and trace things back, like modern modalities, the more I realize that it's just a modern language and programming around an older programming construct that already existed. So it's just interesting how, like, you know, the emotional freedom technique, that was already there. That's Chinese medicine. I mean, that's been around for centuries, if not longer. And yet it's been branded and trademarked and distributed like it's something brand new, but it's not. So, but anyway, okay, I feel like maybe my point with that's been made. I want to talk about the less traveled path, right? People talk about, oh, go the less traveled path. Don't do it the majority of people are doing. Do it with the few people are doing, right? And I feel like that's what the spirituality and conscious community really sort of represents at this point. It's the path of the few. Path of the few. Think about how many tarot readers you know. I'm not talking to folks in the spirituality and conscious community because you probably know quite a few. You probably are one. Just saying, you probably read tarot in addition to whatever else you do. But like, majority of folk, how many tarot readers do you know? How many Reiki practitioners do you know? How many breathwork facilitators do you know? Oh my God, there's so many. I know so many breathwork facilitators. And so the less traveled path, right? Those are things that you probably do. And so for majority of if we were to take the earth and be like, what percentage of people are doing this versus not doing this, it's definitely in the minority. But I want to compare the less traveled path to the untouched terrain, right? The least traveled path versus the untouched terrain. I had a soul wandering experience in, where was I? Oh, I was in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. And I was wandering in nature. I think I was out there maybe like 3-4 hours-ish, wandering. connected with nature, connected with my intuition, following my intuition. And on that journey, I was given an option, and the option was you could keep traveling on these paths that someone already created. These walkways, these trails, people have already walked on them. Someone's already been there. And so now you can walk on them. But you're not here to walk on other people's paths. You are here to create paths. So to do that, you're gonna have to walk when no one's walked before. And I was presented with this field of beautiful golden grass, like wild grass. It was gorgeous and just so soft and fluffy. It was literally, if there's anywhere I could have been asked to walk, that probably was the most heavenly place to walk in all of where we were. And so I went and I walked through this grass where no one had walked before. And then I turned around and looked, and then I saw a thin little trail. And Spirit was like, you did that. You made that path. You walked where no one walked before, and now there are your footprints. And now someone else, if they wanted to, could walk that path. But you're not meant to walk other people's paths. You're meant to create them. The untraveled terrain, the undisturbed terrain. That's, as guides, as healers, as coaches, that is where we need to be focused. That is where we need to be exploring, is what hasn't been done yet. What people aren't thinking about, what people aren't doing. If you come up with an idea and you realize like, oh, someone else is doing it, that's not it. Keep going, keep going. Open yourself up to possibilities, to realities that do not exist yet. And this isn't just advice for guides, coaches, healers, that sort of thing. Every single person can follow this advice. And I guarantee you, even in one day, you will notice a profound difference in not only how you feel, but how your life unfolds. It's really powerful to do this. But you don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Though really what you want to do is do things you have never done before as often as you can. And I call this the exit program pivot. I've been doing this intentionally the past couple days. And this name came to me because this is something I've done before. I could never put a lot of words to describe what I'm doing. Some people call it being spontaneous. Some people call it not being responsible. Some people have their names and judgments for what's different and what's outside of the program. That's why it's called Exit Program Pivot. So the Exit Program Pivot is essentially you, at any given point in time, you may be given or prompted with ideas or inspirations of things to do, of paths to take. Essentially, whichever of those options is not something that you've done before. Sorry, I keep looking over here. I'm like, something's loading on my phone. So I'm like checking to make sure that it's like doing what it's supposed to do. But if you go with the option that's outside of what you normally do, it's outside of routine. So I have a dry erase board here. Let me just erase this and I can give you some options. I'm gonna use myself this morning. So we're gonna do Asha. So grab my name on the board and I'm gonna write down here the things I usually do in the morning. And then the other things that came to mind for me to do this morning as well. And then I'm gonna give you an example of how to do this. Okay. Okay, so I've got a bunch of things written here on this dry erase board. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark lines and show you what I usually do on a day like today. Today is a Friday. So usually I wake up and then I go and make myself cacao and then toast, and then I usually at the same time I'm watching YouTube videos and checking Instagram, and then I will probably go run like an errand and then take a nap and meditate and then go to work and then drive home and then eat some fast food on the way home because it's usually super late when I get off, and then I'll sleep. And so that's usually the path of a Friday. And so it's all over the place, but you'll understand why in a second. Okay, so this in red is how my morning went today. So I did things that are usually outside of my program for today. So I went and worked out first thing, and that was the first pattern breaker. This was the first significant, that's what kicked all of this off. And that's what makes it easier to keep exiting the program by pivoting, is if you start off with what you're usually doing, the program that you're usually running, it can be a little bit more challenging. But if you start off by exiting the program to begin with, then it's a lot easier to keep exiting. And so I went and worked out, and first thing, got up, went. It was challenging. I'm being honest with you. I did not want to go work out. I wanted to keep lying in bed, but I kept seeing myself. I kept getting an idea to work out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. That feels refreshing. I don't usually do that. That's what I'm going to do. And then usually after working out, I would come back and then I would shower and then eat. So we can say, oh, usually shower and eat. But again, I didn't do that. After I worked out, I did something I also don't usually do. I went to go talk to the leasing office about something that usually I would wait days or weeks to deal with. But I just went right away and talked to them, and it was great. It was effective. I got exactly the information I needed, and it was in perfect divine timing. And the next thing that I did is I filmed this talk that I'm doing right now. That's something I also don't usually do. And so now that I've begun this pattern of doing things I don't usually do, it's easier to continue to do things and perceive the things that are outside your program that are in a direction I can go. And the whole point of this is to get you to become more aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Are you going through your daily routine because it's actually serving you in that particular moment? Or are you doing it because it's a program that you or someone else decided that you should be following, and so you're just doing it because you're used to doing it? At that point, it may not actually be serving you. These ideas and inspirations that we get of what we should be doing, ideas, people to go talk to, things to go do, that's all coming from our inner being. That's all coming from source, and it's all that's doing is not only waking us up and shaking us out of that program so that we can exit it, but it's actually because it's the right time to do these things. I feel like we get ahead of ourselves often and thinking about divine timing. And we think about, oh, this is the divine timing, this is not divine timing, this is not the right timing for this. And I feel like a lot of decisions about divine timing come from a place of trying to control it, trying to control timing, come from a place of fear, feeling like you're not ready for the timing of when things are happening. But again, nothing ever happens as a coincidence. Nothing ever happens that we can't handle or that we're not ready for. So this really puts the power back in our hands. This puts the control back in our hands, and we can do that by taking and making choices that we've never made before. Every single day, and really multiple times a day, we should be doing things that we've never done before, making choices we've never made before. Because otherwise, you're just following a program, you're on the train tracks and you're going where that train's leading, right? There's a goal with that, right? And maybe you know the goal still, maybe you've done it so long you've forgotten what the goal even was, but you're so used to being on that train track that you're like, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going, this is what's comfortable, this is what I'm used to, this is where the momentum is. I'm just gonna keep going down this route even though I can't even remember why I'm doing this to begin with. You don't want to live your life that way. And as guides, can we really guide our clients? Can we really guide our students? Can we really guide the world if we're just simply treading on paths that have already been tread on and just leading people to more programs? Like, that's not the point of any of this. The point of this is to exit the programs, to begin to make choices outside of the program, and to continue that process of ascension and cleansing and elimination of goals, aims, and objectives that have been created by others, that have been created in the past that no longer serve us, and begin to create our own goals and objectives and be inspired to activity and measures to get to that. And in that way, we create something new. In that way, we create a new path that's authentic and true to us. You know, there used to be a time when it was really honorable and it was really expected to be different, right? I remember there was a time where if someone was like, oh, mistook you for someone else or said you looked like someone else, there's a time when it was insulting. It was expected for everyone to be individualistic. And that's how, that's why, a lot of people got some of the creative nicknames they have. Think about people, even like 40, 50 years ago, and some of the nicknames that people have, some of the casual names that people have, ways that we have of describing each other. You knew exactly who that person was. There was no mistaking this person for someone else. You just knew. And people that were like everyone else were called squares, or they were called, they were considered boring because there was nothing in distinguishing or individualistic about them. They sort of just blended in to the masses. And I want to take us to that frame of mind, to that way of looking at things, of being individualistic, of being true trendsetters, being true waymakers, being true trailblazers. That's what it really means to be awake, is to be aware of all of the programs. Not just the ones that say are bad, and these are the ones that say are good, right? Or they're like, no, these aren't programs. These are for the enlightened folks. You can do this if you're awakened. You can, this is for the folks who are healing, who are doing this. But really, you're just doing the same thing that people have done already. There's nothing new there. Did you awaken just to take on another program that someone else created? Seems sort of like a scam. Seems sort of planned, if you ask me. Seems sort of like it was planned, right? I imagine some person, some powerful person being like, well, there's all these people that are waking up, that are realizing, what we're doing, realizing what's going on here. So we need to create something for them to do once they wake up, but make them think it was their idea and then make it seem so different from the mainstream, that's what they'll be focused on. But really, we're controlling that too. So that they think they've reached the place that they want to be, but really it's not. And they don't really awaken to realize that was also a part of the plan. If you watched The Matrix Resurrection, I'm going to spoil it. So if you don't want me to spoil it, then don't watch this part. Essentially what happened was Neo exited the Matrix. He chose to go back into the Matrix once he reached the source of the program, the person that created it, and an attempt to try to save humanity. instead of just consigning himself to go back in the Matrix again as, you know, being used or whatever. So he decides to go back and save the Matrix, and insert a movie in sort of there. And then the Matrix Resurrection happens. It's the third movie, and we very quickly realize that Neo is in the Matrix again, but he doesn't realize it, and he's waking up to the fact that he is in it again and has to re-exit the Matrix. The prior Matrix movies, he remembers them as more like memories, but even more as distant memories because he's lived a different life now. So, and he used that to create a video game called The Matrix, which is sort of, you know, how trippy is that? And essentially when he thought he had gotten out of it, he was actually still in it. He was in another construct. He was in another construct where he thought he was free from it, where he thought he had control. He had created the Matrix video game. People loved it, blah, blah, blah. He was successful. But he was still constantly plagued by these visions, plagued by the feeling that things weren't quite right, and in and out of therapy, was being prescribed a lot of medicine to suppress his visions, to suppress the truth. And he was surrounded by people, it turns out, whose aim were to keep him suppressed, keep him in the Matrix, and keep him complicit. At one point, someone was able to break through that Matrix and get to Neo and sort of be like, dude, you're in the Matrix still. And at first he wholeheartedly resisted that fact. Totally resisted, like, no, that's not true. It's not what's happening. And then he just had this moment and he realized he was right. He was able to see a little bit behind the veil, and he was like, oh, shoot. They're right. And then he exited again. I feel like that's very much what's happening or really what will happen for folks in the spirituality and consciousness community is that at some point they're gonna wake up again and realize that what they've been doing are simply just keying into programs that already exist and that they're still in a matrix. They're gonna wake up again, hopefully. Hopefully. As far as how I feel, what I feel my place is and my path is among this, I'm still trying to figure that out. I know that I am continually inspired to talk about these sorts of things, talk about my process, what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing, continuing to exit, program, pivot, so that I can really truly see what's happening, see what the energetic patterns are, and understand what's a pattern and program that already exists and what's a path that is untraveled. Not less traveled, but untraveled. So I say this all to, in lieu of me being right there and being able to shake you and be like, dude, you're still operating off a program. I can't think of anyone that I know for sure isn't still operating off a program. So everyone's still running a program. In lieu of being there to shake you and say, dude, girl, God, goddess, wake up. This is a program too. It's just so interesting, right? How, you know, you wake up, you're like, oh, I'm free. And they're like, oh, welcome to New Earth. You can choose this or this or this or this. You can choose yoga. You can choose astrology. You can choose human design. You can choose Reiki. You can choose tarot. You can choose numerology. And here are all of the rules for doing these things. Welcome, you're free now. That doesn't really sound like freedom. That doesn't really sound like the new earth. That doesn't really sound like a path untraveled. That is another program. That's another construct. That's another system meant to control. And that ultimately comes from a place of fear. Fear of the untraveled path. Well, we don't know what's over there. We don't know that, so we're not going to go in that direction. To get out of your programs, sometimes you need to do something out of order. If you have a routine that you usually follow, intentionally don't follow that routine, but still do something that's in alignment, something that's beneficial. This morning, I don't usually just get up right away and go straight to the gym, but I had the idea, and so since all ideas are meant for now, I am doing it now, and it feels good. I did have to overcome some resistance in order to do this, but I just forced myself to get up. Now I'm here, and now I'm feeling good. Okay, so I got inspired. I went back to my apartment, literally stepped in the door, and it was like, oh, the lease renewal. Like, I should go talk to the leasing office about this. They want to raise rent for me. So instead of like trying to come up with a strategy, I just went. I just decided to go and just ask them why. I don't necessarily have to like make a decision on anything. But I was like, I just want to know what's going on. So I went, and they're like, oh, it's inflation. It's happening everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, is it negotiable? And they're like, yes. And apparently I'm not the only one that asked that, because they had a response already prepared. And they're like, email this person with what you want, essentially. And then it'll go from there. And I was like, perfect. So I am not even, I'm still playing through, trying to figure out like what I'm gonna do towards my lease, whether I'm gonna stay where I'm at or move. But the pricing of rent here does have an impact on whether I stay or go. Especially because I assumed that it would just stay the same, that it wasn't gonna go up. So, but now that I know that feels really good. So I'm really glad that I followed that positive impulse and went in that direction and did that, because they gave me really important information that I needed. And what I also realized is that by just doing it, but not thinking about it really beforehand, it didn't get my mind to come up with resistance to get in the way. Felt like I was more acting from my intuition and less from like logic and strategy. So there is a benefit to spontaneity. It's not just like, oh, I'm just doing whatever I want, whenever I want, in that way. Although it is like doing whatever I want, whenever I want, but it's coming from a place of intuition and being divinely guided, following your inner being, that sort of thing. So it's coming from that place, divine spontaneity. There is a difference. So, okay, I'm going to continue on with my day, but I wanted to share that. There are very few select of us that are extremely interested in traveling that path that no one's traveled before, and making new ways and doing new things and things that people aren't usually or used to doing. So if you are one of those people, I'd love to connect with you. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Go ahead and leave a comment, engage, let's talk. If you join my Patreon, you get early access to all of my videos, all of my content, everything I share. It goes on Patreon first, so you get first level access. And so I encourage you to join. The first tier is very affordable, and we think about and talk about things like this. We challenge the status quo, we push each other out of our comfort zones. I'm continually living and experimenting with every single thing that I'm saying here and sharing with you. And the goal is to really allow you to be free to make the decisions that you want to make, to be free to live a life that you've always wanted to live, that maybe other people say is impossible to live, and to create intentionally, to create with intention, create with purpose, and be free of just running another program. If you haven't yet, join my Patreon. It's worth it, yo. I do have a lot of free content on there because I do believe and feel that a lot of what I'm sharing needs to be seen by everyone. And I don't want any barriers to that. Some of my more high level content, some of my more personal content, especially my courses, All that stuff is on different levels and different tiers. And so I welcome you. I've got a segment, I've got a line just for coaches and guides. It's going to be called Guides. It's really clear. The reason I created that SKU is so that guides and healers could have a place to really like talk about and really feel comfortable expressing questions, concerns about coaching and being a guide. There's a lot of stuff that comes up with that, and I've experienced this myself with feeling like, well, I don't feel like I have anyone to go to about this, because I can't go to a client because they're gonna, maybe what if they'll question me as a guide, right? What if I go to another guide, ask them for help? Well, they might think, they might judge me. They might think that, I'm not a good guide, whatever, I'm not credible, blah, blah, blah. When really, as guides and healers, we need to be there supporting each other and connecting each other and not judging each other, and being open to all the ways in which we can be guides, not just the ones that are already preset programs. So I created that SKU just for us. Guides have a separate Q&A with me where we can go into everything and anything, but also discuss things related to being a guide, being a coach, being a healer of that sort. And then we've got, of course, got the regular SKUs for all my folks that it's like, I'm not trying to be no tarot reader, I'm just trying to live a better life. Then of course I've got those for you too. So come on over to Patreon. There will be a link somewhere, and I can't wait to share more with you and commune with you. So let's fucking do this. Okay, we are gonna end this there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next one.